just wanted to give this to you. Good luck on your match tonight.
I've never seen a red daisy before, Nigel. And Chainsaw seemingly appreciates the gift.
This is
What?
This is boring.
You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
The World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Welcome all and happy holidays. For those of you that are listening to this, I'm pretty sure that we are in the new year as I am recording this now. And as such, there are new turnovers and new stories and returns and departures, all that good stuff that's been going on in the world of pro wrestling, and certainly in the world of pro wrestling as it relates to the women. And we're going to go off into talking about a good chunk of this, and not necessarily how it affects WOW, but just the overall landscape to women's professional wrestling. There are a few shuffles about, and I'm sure we will get into that. As I am recording this, I gave a few days after I did the last one. So as I'm recording this now, I have rolled over into the new year. I think, if I'm remembering right, I think part of the last one was in the new year. But anyhow, the point being is that we are in 2025 now, and we will address all the good stuff that's been going on at the end of 2024, going into this year, and what other changes / discussions we may need to have as relates to women's wrestling, and of course what is going on in the world of WOW and their program and angles and the competitors and titles and et cetera, all that good stuff upcoming within this episode. So let us begin and start off with our news, views, and updates. So here we go, folks. The question is now out. Is Jordynne Grace en route of WWE? It certainly feels that way. The last time that I talked about this, it was following Tessa Blanchard attacking Jordynne Grace. Following that, now keep in mind that all of this took place, and I should have been down there, but all of this took place in Atlanta. And this is my backyard. I should have gone. I know I should have. I would have enjoyed the show. But because the way that TNA tapes, they do it once a month. That's maybe not ideal if you're trying to keep things secret, but it's probably a little better than trying to shoot the entirety of your year inside of a month. Go figure. But anyhow, so the spoilers were out there. It's not like I didn't come across this. But anyhow, the last time that I talked about this, and it is now aired, Jordynne Grace was booted out of the show by Tessa Blanchard, who came in and attacked Jordynne Grace, through the baby faces following the 8-woman tag. And it felt like such an end to Jordynne Grace being there without her basically having to do a job. She already did the job for Slamovich, put her over, got the title. She already did the job for Tasha Steelz. In fact, she did the job for Slamovich a couple of times. So the reports were that she wasn't necessarily wanting to work with Tessa Blanchard. That was the report. I don't know how true that is. We all heard that. People are like, well, they didn't ask. That's not true. So I'm not saying that is a true statement. I'm just saying that's what was reported. And as such, maybe she didn't want to put Blanchard over, but she wanted to be put out of TNA wrestling, I guess. End of the end result here, the end of the story is basically that if you didn't hear it last week, what wound up happening is Blanchard comes in, she attacks Jordynne Grace, she essentially takes her to the back. I want to say dragged her, but she takes her to the back towards the loading area. She grabs a bag, which we assume to be Jordynne Grace's bag, and takes the if you ever seen like a gym bag and you got it's not a small handle, it's like rope or fabric, and it's long so it can hang and it can dangle, but it's long enough to where you can slip it around somebody's head if you really had to, if it's large enough bag. So she takes the handle and she wraps it around Jordynne Grace's throat and drags her down this ramp out of the door, beats her up a little bit on the way and afterwards, and then yells at us like, this is my division now. And I can't remind her, I'm just not verbatim, but it's her division. She's back and she's reclaiming it. That's ultimately the points that are made here. And so she puts her out, leaves her there by the loading bay, walks back in. She, being Tessa Blanchard, pulls the loading bay doors down, those heavy steel doors, dusts her hands, like wipes her feet on the concrete and walks away. Feels like it could be the end of it, or the end of Jordynne Grace there. And if she is out of there, is she en route of WWE right now? Because I can't see any reason for her to hang around TNA Wrestling if she's, unless she was going to be there to put Blanchard over. Because I can't imagine that they brought Tessa in to lose immediately to Jordynne Grace. Now, I can imagine her losing to Slamovich. She might get a win or two here just to build her up to Slamovich, but I can imagine that she would possibly lose to Slamovich. It might be one of those things like, hey, you're coming back, so you this is a new locker room. You're going to have to make nice with everybody, or whatever the case may be. So that is very possible. We will keep our eyes open for it, and hopefully this go-round will be a better go-round for Blanchard, but I will repeat what I said before when I heard that she returned. If I am TNA management, the experiment of having Tessa Blanchard or mixing up the divisions at any phase, that's done. We finished with that. We tried it. Didn't do anything for the company. In fact, I would venture to say that it hurt them, especially with her not showing up and for all intents and purposes holding the title hostage. The fact that she's back there at all is, she should be thanking her lucky stars about that rather than being blacklisted off of Wrestling Forever. So that being the case, stick with the Knockouts Championship. Make that title the most important title in women's wrestling. Because for a good long period of time, it was perceived as such. It was perceived as the most important title as women's wrestling for a good while. Now, whether they can regain that, I certainly think it's more valuable than the Ring of Honor Women's Championship. That thing, I don't even know what to say about that. And it could be an arguable point that it might be on par with NXT and, WWE and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's had more exposure. It's been around the world. It's been recognized by multiple promotions. There's a strong argument that the TNA Knockouts Championship could very well be the most important women's title in women's wrestling. Ty Mello has returned to the ring, or she is set to return to the ring as I am recording this. She's going to Stardom. This is her first in-ring return since pregnancy, and she got on her social media to make the announcement that she was going to Stardom. I forget what event that was that she will be participating in, but she will be there. Another thing that I want to talk about here just for a moment is a post that I found on Reddit. this post, nothing wrong with the post, by the way, and I'm sure that this person would, meant what they said and probably is a big fan of Miami Sweet Heat. But the post basically reads that Miami Sweet is an appreciation post. If anybody's looking at, to try to find this, Miami Sweet Heat appreciation post. Put up by Piano Rough. So, to whomever you are out there, thank you for that. That is not to me personally, but I'm just saying I appreciate that there's a post that we can kind of sit down and talk about a little bit. And I want to read that post just to, set up what I'm about to say. The Carlson twins are that very classic heel team in the style of Condrey/Eaton version of the Midnight Express. And they do the classic facials and sell their Jeopardy, and they're not afraid to look foolish. Pairing them with the Dojo Defenders is a smart move. All right. So I can appreciate the love that is being put towards Miami Sweet Heat. They are a good team. I don't know if I would consider them a very classic heel team. And certainly not in the style of Dennis Condrey and Bobby Eaton. I guess that would have been like third incarnation of the Midnight Express, I think. On the national stage, well, they weren't even nationals then, but when they went to Crockett, they became nationals. On the national stage, they're the first version. And territories, I think they're like the second or third. But in any case, the point being, it is very nice of this person to give them praise like that. I don't know if I can agree with the praise because Miami Sweet Heat have not gotten to the point where I would trust them to take on anybody at any given time and have a good match. Now, the things I'm saying about Miami Sweet Heat at this point, I'm not saying this to disparage them or talk about, them not being a good team or something like that. They can grow into all that. I just don't think that they're there yet. Because they got to points where, they certainly have improved. I don't think there's any question about that. But I don't know if they can have a good, strong match with anybody. And pairing them with the Dojo Defenders is a smart move. They're not paired with the Dojo Defenders. They just beat them. They're not in a feud or an angle with the Dojo Defenders. It was a one-and-done match. They're not returning to this. And if they do, it's going to be the same thing. It's just going to be a match that just happens, and they'll beat them, and then they'll move on. This is not some sort of pairing off. It is everything that I said the last time. It's like they need something else to do, but they've never had that. It's always been they are chasing for the titles or they're defending the titles, and there's nothing in between. They went in as baby faces. They went to the tournament. They turned heel. They stayed heel. They won the titles. They lost the titles. They won the titles. They lost the titles. And they rinse and repeat until we get to where we are now. So that's one of the, I can't agree in total with this because this is not some sort of angle for Miami Sweet Heat and the Dojo Defenders to do anything. And if they did, the Dojo Defenders aren't getting anything out of it. They are going out there to lose. That's been their job. I do not think that they have some sort of chemistry between the two. They just have not had that. That's another thing. Miami Sweet Heat has not had the yin to their yang, which is, again, another reason why I cannot put them. I can't compare them. I definitely won't put them in the same category, but I cannot compare them to the Midnight Express in that regard either. They have not had that. They have not had any significant match/feud that's going to define them and or women's tag team wrestling going into the future. They just, they just aren't there. And this is not them being awful. I'm not saying that. They just haven't had it. The biggest feud that they had was against the Tonga Twins. And that wasn't good. I'm sorry. It just wasn't. They had a couple of good matches in there, but they also had matches where it was a slog to get through. I mean, my mind reverts back to the match where I guess it was a no holds barred or, no DQ. And it's hard to say this without insulting all four. But all four of them are in the ring. They're trying to take, the Tongas are trying to take care of one of Miami Sweet Heat. And the other one just had to stand there because that was what the spot required. And just stood there like an idiot while they was beating up on the sister and acting like this invisible force shield was stopping her from doing anything. Those matches were not fun. I was happy when I was praying for it to finally be over. And then they won the titles back anyway. So, I mean, it was not, what did they gain from this? It never struck me that they were in the vein of a classic heel team. And that might not be entirely their fault, but it is a thing that I view true nonetheless. Do they have great facial expressions? Well, certainly they have started giving good facial expressions. Are they not afraid to look foolish? No, they're not afraid to look foolish. They've done it in the vignettes. The segments that are shot, they've allowed themselves to look like complete idiots. But that alone changes it. That alone is the reason why they cannot be compared to the Midnight Express. Jim Cornette's job, and largely every manager of that era's job, was they took the embarrassment so that their team did not have to, or their person did not have to take the embarrassment until it was a point that they were going to get something from that embarrassment. Jim Cornette got his face put in the cake, not the Midnight Express. Jimmy Hart would get pantsed, not the Honky Tonk Man, or he would get his hair cut, not the Honky Tonk Man. Bobby Heenan might get punched in the face by the Ultimate Warrior after the match, not Rick Rude. You see where I'm going there? Those guys were there to take the embarrassment for their client. The Midnight, Honky Tonk Man, whoever. Lana Starr, as good as she's grown, hasn't grown into that. She's not at a place where she's taking the embarrassment. She's gotten good. She is growing, but she's still developing. And I would say the same thing about the Carlson twins. Miami Sweet Heat, they are developing. They're not a polished act yet. They're getting there, but they're not a polished act yet. And they need somebody that they can work with. And they have not had the benefit of working with somebody or a team that could be the yin to their yang, as I stated earlier. It's such a complementary style that they can, have these incredible matches. Or even fun matches, but none of that's taking place. It's one of the reasons why I was, very high on the Brat Pack, because they are more apt to be able to work the type of match that their opponents have, rather than forcing their opponents to work their match, if that makes sense. When I look at Miami Sweet Heat, I don't think that they would be able to accommodate, say, the Mites as a match. They can have a match with them, but the Mites are probably not going to look as good as they would if they were with the Brat Pack, who are more comparable in size, can deal with more of their style of work, and give and get as good as, the Mites can deliver. With Miami Sweet Heat, they tower over them. And there's only so much of that they can do. And then you talk about, pairing them off with the Dojo Defenders. Like, the Dojo Defenders are, I hate to say it, but they're an awful team. I mean, we're talking about in terms of them being on camera. Now, I'm not talking about their in-ring work. I'm not talking about how good or bad they are in executing moves and this, that, and the other. None of that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about their win-loss record within WoW. And within WoW, they're an awful team. They're just a body. They're just bodies to be in there and thrown around. So there was no path of up for the dojo defenders in here. There was no reason for anybody to believe that they were going to just somehow jump into this feud, with Miami Sweet Heat. It was a one and done. But I did make my own little chart. And I wanted to just put here how they compare. Because there are other factors I think that is being overlooked when we talk about that. And I broke it into 4 categories. Drawing power, in-ring work, presentation, significant matches, and feuds. Those are my 4 categories. So we're lining up the Midnight Express versus Miami Sweet Heat. Now, I'm not going to do a match-by-match comparison, nor am I going to go through the entirety of their career because there's absolutely no comparison in that regard. Even if taking into account that the Midnight Express had several incarnations. No, we're going to stick with the Contra Eaton version. We're going to talk about those 4 categories and not match to match comparison because the Midnight have like 10 times the amount of matches in Miami Sweet Heat, if not more, probably 20 or 30. Who knows? They were working every day, opposed to flying into Los Angeles and probably as Miami Sweet Heat working, once in a month on the average or something like that. So let's start with the first one, drawing power, the Midnight Express and Miami Sweet Heat. Miami Sweet Heat does not have the drawing power that the Midnight Express would have had at that point. The reason being is because Miami Sweet Heat doesn't have to have the drawing power that the Midnight Express had. It's not up to them to get people to come into the building. It's not up to them to be so obnoxious a team or big of a heel or whatever the case may be in order for people to want to see them get beat. They don't have to have the pressure of that. Nor have they been involved with teams and or persons that are big across the industry. They have teams and or persons that were big in WoW for whatever that may be. Their biggest rivalries in WoW, as I can recall them right now, the Tonga Twins, the Mother Truckers. Who else did they have in there? They did get the titles back from one incarnation of Team Spirit. But that's, that pretty much none of those things was something like, come and see this at our big show and, pay your money, blah, 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 blah. That didn't happen. Now compare that to the drawing power of the Midnight Express. Sorry. Midnight Express came in as a top team. They did not really lose in Mid-South Wrestling. They defeated the tag team champions, which was Mr. Wrestling 2 and Magnum TA. So you had a veteran and you had an up-and-comer. But both of them were popular. They spun off an angle with 2 and TA from that as they became the tag team champions. They started up 2 different feuds, theoretically, at one point when they were doing the tag team celebration. The Rock and Roll Express come out and put Cornette Space in the cake. Then you had Bill Watts, the owner and former wrestler, come out and laugh about it and replay it, which started up their feud because the Midnight did the unthinkable and they beat up on the boss, which made him come out of retirement. So right there alone, you got a top angle with the Midnight Express with the biggest person arguably in that entire company. And then he goes and gets a tag team partner, Stagger Lee, which the alter ego of Junkyard Dog, no one ever acknowledged. They was like, we don't know who Stagger Lee is. It's one of those things. Just like Dusty Rhodes and the Midnight Rider. But they're involved with the top thing. The top babyface in the company and the owner of the company who also was a top babyface. and stipulations that people wanted to see happen to get even with Cornette. The Miami Sweet Heat have not had that, where they've got so much heat that people would pay their money to see them get beat up. They just don't. So drawing power is wiped out. Check to the Midnight Express. Never mind the fact that once they got done with that, they went immediately into the Rock and Roll Express, and that's where that feud started up. And after they got done with the Rock and Roll, it was the Fantastics. All of which was built on, we need to be as good as we can to get people to come into the door. The Midnight had that going for them. The Miami Sweet Heat, I'm sorry, they lose out on that. In-ring work. I think it's safe to say, without any debate, that in-ring work is also going to be a check for the Midnight Express. Not that Miami Sweet Heat is bad. They're actually pretty good. Like I said, I just don't think they have gotten to the point yet where they are able to work everybody's style. Or work everybody's style convincingly. You want an example of what I'm talking about here? Go find Shawn Michaels versus Rey Mysterio. Because by and large, that's not a match that Shawn Michaels would work normally, but he was able to do it because he's good at what he does. Being able to work a lot of different styles is something that I'm sure, given time, given effort, probably visiting some other promotions, they can develop. But I also think that they're going to have to get out of that promotion in order to do it. No offense to WOW, but WOW feels a large portion like if you go there, with the exception of a few people, they have to conform to the pacing that WOW would like them to have, rather than WOW being a platform to do what they would normally do. So the check goes for the Midnight Express there, and I don't even know if you can make that a strong comparison to Midnight. Like I said before, they were working almost every day. Miami Sweet Heat don't do that, so just off of experience alone, they're probably not going to compare. And I keep thinking about these other things. And Dennis Condrey walked into the Midnight Express somewhat as a veteran already. It's not like he just started up. Miami Sweet Heat's experience level is pretty comparable to each other. Lindsay and Lori started they started at the same time. And they probably have an equal amount of experience with each other. Whereas the Midnight, that incarnation of it were two people who had different styles and a different level of experience between the two of them. Three, if you want to include Cornette, that were all collectively put together, that their best portions of each other made this unit. Sweet Heat probably know each other better than anything that Condrey and Eaton did, but again, they have not had, in my view, the opportunity to go out, work different people, work different styles, learn how to do the other little intangibles that would make them a more comparative unit to the Express. Third, presentation. Now that's Miami Sweet Heat hands down. Miami Sweet Heat look like stars. Now you could probably put that off on maybe the era, or I was gonna say maybe the money that's involved, but I can't say that because they were making good money. I mean, the Midnight Express, but they hadn't gotten to that very cosmetic phase that the next incarnation of the Midnight Express would take. This version of him, that they looked a little bit more rough rather than the polished Stan Lane, Bobby Eaton version. Like, that was a more cosmetic version of the Midnight Express. The Eaton Condrey version was probably more in line of what Mid-South needed. They needed people that looked like men, that looked like people that could fight, because that's what the environment dictated. So, presentation, the jackets, the shades, both attractive young ladies. In terms of their look, their stature, their physique, all of that stuff, yes, them. The only thing that they would lose out on that would be with the promo. Not that either one, Condrey or Eaton were known to be great verbalists on the mic, but there's not going to be any comparison when Cornette's in the equation. As much as I like Star, she's not there yet, but just going off of the two of them, yeah, the Miami Sweet Heat over the Express in that. And then we get to the last one. That's significant matches and feuds. Now, of course, I just talked about some of these. Miami Sweet Heat have had matches and feuds, but now how many of these matches are going to be looked at, brought up, talked about years down the line? Probably not many. How many of their feuds are going to stand out over the course of time, or how many of their feuds made a big difference noticeably in business or the viewership or anything like that before they start pulling the ratings? Miami Sweet Heat versus the Tonga Twins had started to become ratings poison. I said that back then. It's like every time that they started coming up, they would lose. They being the Wild's TV show, they would lose a couple of thousand people. It got to where that match was just running people into the ground. It happened all the time. There wasn't, in all due respect to all four parties involved, it just was not some sort of dynamic match that I could see that the world was pining for. Like, well, we got to watch this. This is great. They had one or two that were all right, or maybe one that was good. But it just kept going and it kept going and it kept going. So it's like, look, let's get done with this. And then they stopped doing the ratings at all. So there's no reason for anybody, including me, to believe that Miami Sweet Heat possess any sort of significant matches that people cared about. Other side of the coin, even just this first incarnation of the Express, I just went through like 3 of them. The Midnight versus Stagger Lee and Bill Watts. Headlining the Superdome. That alone, that right there alone should tell you something. The Express versus Magnum TA and Mr. Wrestling 2. Then you go to Watts and Dog, or Watts and Stagger Lee. Then the Rock and Roll. Then the Fantastics. Those matches help drive the business for Mid-South up until the bigger promotion came calling. We need these guys on our show. If some other promotion comes calling to Miami Sweet Heat about, hey, they're that good, like it's an undeniable thing and they have to go. Let's say TNA calls them up. We want them for our tag team division. Then yeah, they might begin to affect business at that point. But right now, as far as this is going, I do not see how they have done anything match-wise that would I don't want to say outdo. That wouldn't be fair. Be comparable to the Midnight Express. So, whereas I can appreciate the posts, and they are a good team, I don't think that they're the best team that WoW has to offer, at least not at this point. I just haven't seen that yet. So, time will tell. Maybe they will get there. Maybe they'll, turn it around. Maybe they'll start having phenomenal matches with everybody. But I also have to add in that WoW's hiring practices of talent probably will shortchange that as well, because they're going to be teams that they're going to be paired off with that are incapable of giving them a high quality match, just because they don't have the experience level behind it. And then Miami Sweet Heat doesn't have a huge amount of experience behind them either. So you're going to get some version of that match in the future with them paired off against somebody else, where it's going to be the blind leading the blind. or the inexperienced leading the inexperienced. One or the other. So I think that is all, because there wasn't a lot of news that I wanted to really get into at this particular point. I think it is now the point that we can move out of that and then get to the meat of the subject. And that's going to be talking about the entirety of the WoW episode. And my gosh, whew, it's going to be something. Anyhow, so let's take our break here, and then we'll get back to the review. We'll see what this episode and all its glory provided for us as far as entertainment. This is the Rights and Wrongs Pro Wrestling Podcast. We'll be right back after the break, and then we'll go right off into the review of WoW Women of Wrestling. All right, we are now back, and we are going into the review of WoW and its latest episode. That is going to be, here's the opening slate, episode 316, which means season 3, episode 16 for them. The title, A Daisy for Luck. I'm pretty sure you already know where that's going to. The air date, December 28th, the chronological number 120. So, the episode begins. And it begins with the Fabulous Four in the arena to open the show. This is supposed to be for Miami Sweet Heat talking about regaining the titles. Lana gets on the mic. She starts cutting the promo. She's asked why the Animal Instinct get a title shot in the first place after having 0 wins, which I wrote down as a good shot by Lana Star. Now, we know that Animal Instinct won something. We know that, but the point is that they aren't worthy of being title contenders. That's the whole point behind the shot that Lana gave. And it was a good one. It was like with 0 wins. But then here comes Animal Instinct. They come out to cut a promo on the Fabulous Four, and goddamn it, did I not call this? Did I not call this? I said this in that episode. I was like, well, they did leave themselves open for a triple threat if that's the route that they wanted to go. Now, the triple threat, I'm not really mad about or whatever the case may be, other than the fact that I fully believe that, okay, here it comes. It wasn't all that long, but here it comes. Here comes the regain of the title by Miami Sweet Heat. Because theoretically, we've dropped Animal Instinct in this thing, so we got somebody else that can eat the fall rather than them, rather than the babyface champions. But they come out, they cut the promo on the Fabulous Four, at least they start to, and I shouldn't even say they, Collins did the talk for Animal Instinct. And I've been told that Goldie Collins is a good promo. I did not hear that here. Now, she delivers with conviction, but I don't know if I would say she's a good promo. In this particular instance, Collins comes out, she hits the microphone, and she says, "We've won some matches." I'm like, that is such a poor response. That sounds so pitiful. Now, again, I'm not going to sit here and say that she is incapable of cutting a good promo or that she hasn't. I did not hear it here. That just sounded like it. Either somebody wrote that and just said, say it, and she memorized it and went out there and did it, or she didn't have a good comeback to give to Lana Star and the Fabulous Four. Now, did it recover? Yes, she did go off into the whole, you could have, we could have won the match and blah, 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 which clearly that's a lie, but, I can go with that because she's a heel. The only thing that I really wish would have happened preceding this confrontation is if Animal Instinct was going to be placed in this position to where they had a gripe or a beef or something like that, I feel, and I'm just going to say me, I feel like they should have gotten closer to winning. Like they were on a sure route of loss, theoretically, because at the time I said, well, we don't know. Goldie Collins could have jumped in to save the partner and stuff like that. But, to make it easy for the viewer to believe what she said, I would have preferred to see them in control or, something along those lines to where they might have thought that Animal Instinct would have come out on top or something like that. Or the other option being have Miami Sweet Heat come out there and attack all parties. Just, bring a weapon out there so they can have the advantage, nail everybody, and give Animal Instinct the reason, an additional reason to be mad. Also, and I know I said this then, I would have liked for the baby faces to at least accomplish 1 or 2 wins before they lose this title. Going into this triple threat, I do not feel good for Big Rigs and Bourbon. I just don't. It feels like this is, we got to get it back on Miami Sweet Heat because they're the only ones that can be tag team champions. So, I really don't know what to say about this particular thing, only because I feel it's foreshadowing the dark clouds of championship loss looming over top of the tag team champions. So as they being Goldie Collins, telling Lana Star / Miami Sweet Heat / the Fabulous Four what they feel about them and that they ruined their opportunity. And hey, that part of the promo I'm fine with. All the other stuff behind, well, we do have some wins, but everything behind that line I'm fine with. I wish he had a sharper comeback instead of that. One of the best comebacks that I ever heard was somebody was like, well, if I had an unlimited amount of rematches like you did, then maybe I'd have a better win-loss record too. Something like that. Because the Fab Four Miami Sweet Heat do have an unlimited amount of rematches in there. So, but that's something that they probably should have thought about before when she came out the ringside. Like, what is my return going to be, or whatever the case. But that didn't happen, so we move on. The next thing that took place there was the baby faces come out. Big Rigs and Bourbon, Jesse Jones and Big Rig Benny. They come out and they're on the ramp. They got the microphone and they are talking. And Jones, Big Rig gets to say something. Jones grabs the mic, and here comes the foreshadowing. I find that WoW is doing this more and more often, where somebody will come out, say something on the microphone that is clearly in line of the route that the story is about to take. And it doesn't feel like this is some sort of spontaneous act. It just feels like, I said this thing, so, okay, well, we'll do that. Just like when we had top tier, like, well, we'll take on anybody. We'll take on any combination, 3-on-3, 2-on-2, 1-on-1. And then it just so happens that they had to take on in a different combination. So here, the same thing happens. We'll beat you. We'll beat the Fab Four. Hell, we'll take on all of you, both of you at the same time. We don't care which one gets the title match. We're willing to take on you both. I wrote down, why would she suggest that? Now, she's a babyface. She's supposed to be willing to fight. I get that. And I'm fine with the old babyface gumption. That she's willing to fight the good fight, and we'll take on anybody, anywhere, all the time, blah, 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 blah. Then that's when we get the whole commentator / lead interviewer / matchmaker / executive producer, and every other goddamn title that he might have on his belt. David McLean gets up and is like, hey, you just gave me a good idea. We'll have a triple threat match. I wrote down and highlighted, did I not call this? Same thing I just said a second. Did I not call this? And I wrote down following that. I said the last match opens the door for this, and they seem to be going through it. Colin's promo is very, very elementary. That's I put that down too. I am sure that having a triple threat amongst the three of them could be an entertaining cluster. Like I said, I just feel the loom and the dread of Miami Sweet Heat getting the titles right back, hanging over top, which, if that happens, is just going to make me feel like, then what did they lose the titles for in the first place? And they're just going to turn it right back around without any rhyme, reason, or anything gained from it. They didn't do anything in between. There was no angle, no story. They didn't build anything. They didn't close anything. They didn't change or use that as a means to get them some other action, or the babyfaces didn't have any significant reign in between this. After all of those things, like, what was this for? I don't get it. And I'm saying if they win, I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but if they do win, then it just leads me back to this. Why did they do it? So we move out of that. That is the opening segment of the show. And it comes to the Battle Royal qualifier for the first segment. That first segment / match is Fury versus Princess Aussie. The first thing I wrote there is, how's Fury getting another title shot at a Battle Royal? This is the same damn thing that WoW does on a consistent basis. Just accept the fact that WoW does not and cannot, are completely incapable of doing any sort of tournament or qualifiers in any meaningful manner. Just accept it. They don't know how. I'm sure somebody be like, well, he just didn't want to know. He don't know how. Until somebody can prove something different to me, they don't know how. They don't care about it enough to try to keep it steady. I mean, this would be a whole different thing if it didn't happen every time they did it. You can accept that, hey, somebody else got another chance or another opportunity every once in a while because somebody didn't show up or these things happen or this changed or that changed. You can accept that. But doing it every single time that they have a tournament or qualifiers, every single time. If they have one tournament in their history that they went through and not did this, I would be shocked. Every time that I've seen it, they always recycle somebody. Every time that I've found one, it's always somebody recycled. Always. They never, ever, ever not do this. McLean tries to explain it and essentially says that, well, he essentially puts the blame on Sierra Breeze not getting there. And it's like, oh, well, she lost her visa and she couldn't make it, so Fury got another shot. I was like, seriously? And then I just went through last episode and named off like at least 4 or 5 names. I'm like, well, why didn't any of these people get a shot? Why didn't Tiki get a shot? Why didn't Kalaki, the Island Girl, get a shot? Diamante get a shot? Keita Rush, Pep Reilly, Sanchez. Why didn't any of them get a shot? Instead of just recycling Fury back into it. It was a lame excuse. And it felt like very much to me the same way the firing thing went off. Like I need to just say this just because I want to be able to say it. Like no one would have ever known that Sierra Breeze was slotted for this match if he hadn't brought it up. No one would have ever known that. He could have put any other person in there and just paraded them out to the ring like every other match without anybody ever knowing. None of us were in on the production meeting. None of us were there when they were putting the matches together. So the explanation, although appreciated, was unwarranted because she shouldn't have been there in the first place. She should not have been there, especially because it's not going to help Fury. And let's just go ahead and get a spoiler up. I'm pretty sure you already know. She lost the first qualifier. And you're going to put her right back into another qualifier for her to lose again. How much more can she take? Because she can't be taken seriously here. She has just lost and lost and lost and lost. Just give her a t-shirt and call her the Brooklyn Brawler. I don't know. Lame excuse. That's all I'm saying. See, bringing up Sierra Breeze in here, not getting a visa, when they could have just as easily, in my opinion, gotten somebody else out there and said this is the qualifier match and been done. And that would have been it. We didn't have to hear Sierra Breeze's name. Somebody who hadn't been on TV in months, won 1 match out of 4 and then disappeared. Not important. This is basically played up as a babyface versus babyface match. This is a more sound exchange than most Wild matches. The pace is pretty methodical, but it's good for what they were doing. There's no reason to go into the play-by-play and move-by-move. This was won by Princess Aussie, as you would expect, and she wins with the cutter. She won I don't want to say out of nowhere with a cutter, but she wins with a cutter. And plops her down, and that's that. Fury now loses twice. Aussie, somewhere in the match, she dropped a really nice elbows. I was talking about BK Rhythm doing one, and even though she connected well, it's looked kind of awkward to me, but that's just me. Aussie dropped a really nice one. But that's beside the point. The match was entertaining. It was nice to watch, but the victory was never in doubt. That is the takeaway from this. The victory was never in doubt. And let me be clear and reiterate one thing. When I brought up BK Rhythm as a point of comparison, it is not something that took place during this episode. I was speaking of her match and her elbow drop on Holly Swag from the previous week. So that was the point that I was being comparative to, just for anybody that's like, I don't remember BK Rhythm being in this show. Well, yeah, that's why I brought it up. I just brought it up as a comparative point. Moving on. Like I said, the victory here, not in doubt. Hopefully they will find something for Fury to do of some level of significance. But once the Heavy Metals / Psycho Sisters ended, she just became a wandering soul. And she's still right now continues to wonder. Next segment, while promos Glitter getting a qualifying match, and the promotional video essentially shows Glitter being ignored and or edged out by the group. My first question is, why is this happening? And where did this come from? It is another unexpected, unexplained, out of nowhere angle. See, last week was a very bland show, but it wasn't bad, it wasn't good. It was just, a maintenance show. Very little on there that I'd had to be upset about or I can't believe it. There's very little of that. Here, I'm like, why? First off, just in this little segment here. So we're getting the point. Yeah, I understand visually it shows the point of Gloria Glitter not being involved or being ignored by her partners in Top Tier. Why would they shoot a brand new video for that? Like in the kayfabe universe of WoW, they already had a video shot of Top Tier. They already have video shot of Gloria Glitter. So for what reason would they return back to, quote, the studio and shoot a new one just to illustrate the point that we're not your friend? For what? I mean, there is no reason for that to happen. There is no justified reason for anybody to let's go into the studio. We'll just ignore you. Forget that you're here and stand in front of you like a wall and have you like a child trying to look over top of our shoulders and see see if you can get to the camera. No reason whatsoever. It's a WoW hallmark at this point. Angles that come out of the clear blue sky. No lead up, it just happens. Because, if we were looking at Top Tier leading up to this point, you would think that this should be Candy Crush. That would be edged out or have a problem with the group or something like that. You would think it would be in that direction. She was the one that was being the loudmouth trying to yank the microphone away from Coach every chance she got. So where did this come from? Why was it just suddenly Gloria Glitter? Yeah, she's a good wrestler. And I have the utmost faith in her to be able to do what she's doing bell to bell and in the ring. I do. But where did this come from? I mean, I'm sure somebody in the back rooms that's doing the creative for a while has some justification for it. I mean, never mind the fact that your heel teams at this point are seemingly just indestructible unless they happen to be named the Alliance. The Alliance is just a third tier team amongst all the teams, unfortunately. But if you're top tier of the Fab Four, however, well, you can lose, but you cannot be ultimately beaten by anybody other than top tier or the Fabulous Four. It's got to be an internal problem. And that's what this comes off like. It's like, all right, well, top tiers creating their own internal issues. It keeps taking me back to every reason that I just dislike the trios titles. They are worthless. Not that the WoW Championship is much better at this point, but the trios titles are worthless. They only serve the point of being vanity championships. Nothing more or less than that. They haven't had a significant feud. The only rivalry / feud that they had, they lost. And then they were just giving belts anyway. And then it was just what I said was going to happen, a nonstop parade of teams being rotated in and out of them so they can have somebody to wrestle. And since they've beaten everybody that's been put in front of them, now I guess they just got issues within the group. So I don't, let's just move on to the next thing. I'm sure there will be more that I can talk about within that. Oh, yeah, and I guess I did just mention the Wild Championship. The thing that they're all going after in this scenario, because the title has been placed on the pedestal literally, out at ringside. And this is the thing that we all want, the Wild Championship. Because with the title, you'll get more notoriety, you'll get more money, you'll get more attention and opportunities if you're the Wild Champion. Except none of those things are true. If it were true, I'm pretty sure the Beast would not be on Mr. Beast right now. The Wild title is just the Wild title. Means nothing. The fact that this show can go on for 4 and 5 months without the champion or the championship there, defended, or being used in any capacity pretty much helps me believe that this title means nothing. And if the champion is certainly willing to be like, you know what, forget it, then the title means nothing. Now, it's great that all the rest of these ladies are going after it. Maybe they'll be able to rehabilitate it. Maybe. I doubt that, but maybe. The reason I doubt it because I have reason to believe the person that wins this, as talented as they are, is probably not the champion that WoW needs at this point. They need people who can be able to get attention on the promotion, either through in-ring work, their personality, or some combination thereof. Outside of that, that should be one of the major qualifiers for whoever's the champion at this point. Outside of that, no, yeah, I get it that sounds very political because you're basing who gets the title off of elements that some people may not be able to control, but unfortunately, that's just life. They don't put Jake Paul in the middle of a main event against a 60-year-old Mike Tyson because they thought that it was going to be a good fight. They did that because people will pay money to see Jake Paul get beat up. Now, that didn't happen, but they would pay money to see that. It's about trying to get attention on your brand and your product and all of that good stuff. And without naming any names, I know I went through it once when I did a spoiler for their Vegas show. But if you haven't seen the Vegas show, I'm not going to repeat anything now. I would just say, given who they have championed on that program, it's nice for that person to get the title. I just don't know if that person is who WoW as a program / promotion needs at this point. They need somebody who can actually draw them some kind of attention and make that championship mean something, which as of right now, it does not. All right, I went off long enough. Going on, next segment, Gloria Glitter with Top Tier versus Chella. The first thing here is that we got another edition of dumb babyface syndrome, although it worked out a little better for Chella because she comes out there by herself. Now, we know that she has a tag team partner. In fact, her tag team partner's in the building. According to this episode, she doesn't come out with her. Whereas Glitter comes out with both members of Top Tier who seem annoyed that she went and asked for a championship qualifier. Now, we didn't see Gloria Glitter do this. There's no segment that she coming out of McLean's office or Coach Campanelli and Candy Crush confronting her about asking for a match or something like. None of those things happen. It just They just start explaining it. Like, well, she went around coach and asked for this match. Like, we didn't see any of this. And that is a norm for a while. We didn't see 1 second of those things happen. The angle is explained by David McLean like it always is, and it makes it lose something. I cannot invest my time into Gloria Glitter doing something behind the coach's back, which we didn't see her do behind the coach's back. Or up until this point, we didn't even see Coach or Crush have an issue with it. But it took the time and effort to shoot a promotional video that's only going to run once and have this match. Why couldn't they just shoot a segment in the back or something? I don't know. But it loses something just on that alone. It loses my ability to invest in it. That said, Glitter and Chella do look good together. So it's not a question of whether or not they can have a good match. As I said, I had the utmost confidence that Gloria Glitter would be able to deliver the goods bell to bell with, with anybody, really. But the story here isn't about whether she can have a match bell to bell with Chella or anyone else for that matter. The story here is that apparently she disobeyed or went around or ignored the leadership qualities of the coach, et cetera, et cetera. Now, when they come out, they seem relatively unified. They come out doing their team thing and getting on the ropes and the normal entrance and all that good stuff like that. And the top tier hand gesture, all that good stuff. Coach and Crush look like they could really care less, right? Glitter's out there trying to get them to, when they get in the ring, she's trying to get them to do the top tier thing with them. She's like, come on, guys. Then they're not participating. They're just kind of standing around watching. Now, again, this felt like we should have seen it. It felt like we should have known, or at least if we had seen some sort of interaction with them backstage or prior to this, I might have been able to get more invested in it, particularly if there was something that I knew was on the line for it. But there's really not that much on the line because I didn't have a doubt that Chella was going to go over. Just because it was Glitter on her own. And I didn't think, and when the press came out for it, they made it sound like she went behind Coach's back. So I was like, well, I know what the angle's going to be now. It's not going to be anything about whether she can get into the match or not. It's going to be all about her doing something that Coach did not want her to do. So Chella comes out, and she comes out by herself for whatever reasons because, she's a babyface. And babyfaces apparently in WoW do not bother and or need or want help despite what the odds are. You stay back here. I'll do this on my own. Even when there's 5 different people standing at ringside, and we know that David has no problem allowing them to cheat. And the referees are all stupid, so they can't stop it and or find it. So, but the match is good. Is a good match between the two of them. I mean, just to open an exchange between Glitter and Chella. I like this. It's an arm drag, the duck underneath, the leapfrog. The attempt of arm drag by Chella was blocked by Glitter, who turns into an arm drag of her own. I mean, they're doing good stuff out there. As I expect between the two of them, I expect them to deliver good stuff. Even the slide through that Glitter does, and then the slide backwards by Chella. It's amazing the type of match you might get We have some people that's been doing this for a significant amount of time and have a real good idea of what they're doing and how to do it. Now, they did have a little bit of a mishap might be too strong of a word. There was a point where they were doing the bridge spot. And Chella is on top of Glitter as she lays in the ring. She rolls through, grabbing both legs in a jackknife pin position, but Glitter is trying to bridge herself up and get Chella so they can turn it into a backslide. Now, unfortunately, they may have lost that on the way up, so the backslide didn't go through. But, those things happen. It wasn't nearly as big of an issue as, and I hate bringing it up, but it wasn't nearly as big of an issue as like Tiki missing the 619. So whereas in that instance, I Wow should have edited that out. Here, I'm fine with it because it was like a normal function of the match, and you can pretty much play that up as in the commentary booth. But they do their thing, and she being Gloria Glitter gets her stepmaster deal in and whatnot, does a great clothesline to the back of Chella's head. Meanwhile, Crush and Coach are just standing on the outside watching, and somewhat intently, I guess, but they're watching. But they do not seem to want to be bothered or interfere. So, back in the ring, Glitter, Chella, nice exchange. In fact, I would say that seeing them in the ring together would only make me want to see them in the ring against each other again in the future. Although I don't want to be completely insulting, although I would probably prefer to see it in a different promotion rather than this. I would probably rather see Ray Lynn and Delilah Doom opposed to Chantilly, Chella, and Gloria Glitter. Because I think they would have a little bit more steam on them in their indie personas opposed to here. So let's get to the important spots of the match. The first spot, Glitter gets up after delivering the clothesline to Chella at some point, and she stands up, and you can see her pointing at her friends, quote, on the outside. And she's like, yeah, you got her? Yeah, she's like pantomiming that I'm about to send her to the outside to get her. So she takes Chella and hoists her through the ropes and send her out to the floor. Both members of Top Tier back up. Even though Glitter has the referee distracted, she's talking to him, getting his back turned, but they just back away. They don't do anything. Dave McClain stands up so he can see it, I guess, but in any case, they don't bother. Glitter sees this by the referee, and she's like, get out of the way. And she goes on the outside and why didn't she do anything? So she's shocked that they did not help her at all. In fact, Chella starts fighting back on the outside, and the members of Top Tier, Crush and Campanelli, don't do anything about it. They just let her get the upper hand on their teammate. So she's fighting from the outside in as Chella. She manages to get herself in the ring. What would have been a sunset flip through the ropes, she kind of flips over top of Glitter. And then she starts up running back and forth doing her Chantilly Chella thing. The Chella offense. And she does good with that. And here's the thing with Chantilly Chella for me. Because I know some people are like, well, she's really tiny too. And she is. She's not a huge young lady. She's not of thick stature, we'll say. However, standing in the ring with Gloria Glitter is not that bad. It's not that big of a difference between the two. Nor does it hurt her that there are smaller people on this roster than Chella. Having a Pep Reilly there and having a Tiki Chamorro does take the heat off of her being, one of the smallest persons in the room, so to speak. So, and anyhow, getting towards the end, we got Chella just sizing Glitter up as she's getting ready for her cutter. Now, I still disagree that multiple people are using the cutters, and having them on the same episode, I'm not fond of that. If it's Princess Aussie's finish, let it be Princess Aussie's finish. But I don't know if 2 and 3 people on this roster should be using the cutter as a finish. But Chella tries to go for a cutter. She's shoved off by Glitter. Glitter then whips her around and in one smooth maneuver and tries to go for the aerobic annihilator. Chella's able to get out of that and pops Glitter in the head with a nice kick. That got oohs and ahs out of the room. For those of you that know that I watched this at work. Glitter was able to get her foot up on the rope and stop this. And Chella's standing up like, all right, guys, one more time or something like that. Chella is able to stop her, yanks the waistband and pulls her down as I should say Glitter is able to stop Chella. Pulls her waist, yanks her down into the ropes, and then she tap dances on her back. And then she shoots her off. Now, it probably would have been a better idea just in hindsight to put her on the second rope opposed to the first, because when she got whipped backwards, it looked like the top of her head went against the second rope. Now, she probably wasn't, adjusting for that, just being that low. And then Glitter gets her like, all right, guys, this is for you. Or, something like she points at her friends and gets ready to do the annihilator again. Chella's able to get out of it. She reverses it, sends her to the ropes. That's reversed. And Chella goes into springboard action, springboards off the second, and rolls up Glitter for the win. And Glitter looks heartbroken that she just lost. And everybody's happy, and they're doing the thunderclappers and all that good stuff. I'm pretty sure that whoever's off to the side said, all right, guys, clap. So, and that's what they did. They all started clapping. Chella wins. She goes into the Battle Royal. She is now qualified. Coach and Crush come in afterwards, and Coach cuts a promo on Glitter after the match and essentially berates her for trying to do something on her own. And she's telling that she's the coach and, she makes the decisions around here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And was it me? I probably should go back and watch it. It sounded like the crowd started chanting for Coach for a while. For a moment there. I don't know. Maybe, it would not shock me with that crowd that they would start chanting for Coach because they don't know who they're chanting for. They don't care. It's just all one big show. Who's good, who's bad means nothing. They're just, yay, Coach. So, I don't know. I wrote down here after this, do all heel teams have to fall apart on their own? What is happening here? This is very random. And the randomness being Glitter having a problem with her group when there's been no lead up to that. And if this is where it's going, what was all this Candy Crush nonsense about? I mean, yes, it was very small, but it was Crush that was being the jerk of the group, yanking the microphone and whatnot. So where's that? They stress me sometimes. The next segment is Chainsaw walking through the backstage area and Pep Reilly giving her another flower. And I wrote, where is this going? Feel like I asked that question a lot. Where is this going? Because whatever progression that it felt like it was having initially, it stopped. How many more times do we have to see them backstage handing each other stuff? Like, I was cool with it when it started off. I really was. I felt like it was okay. I can understand Pep Reilly being distraught. I can even accept that Chainsaw took pity on her without rhyme, reason, and explanation. I was willing to accept that. And then I was willing to accept that now Pep Reilly is, hey, good luck with your match and, being nice to her, giving her whatever. But what is supposed to be happening there? It's just I give you this, you give me that. I mean, where are we going with this? What is the point of all of these things? So, and another thing, it's like, how did Pep Reilly even know that she was walking through this place? And, the scene starts off with Chainsaw just kind of wandering around the unfinished backstage area of this TV studio. And I guess it looks like she's about to walk outside because she's heading toward the exit door. I mean, I know it says the arena, but as far as I knew, all exit signs lead to the outside. But anyhow, that's neither here nor there. The point is that she's walking down the hall, this big empty hallway, and I liked it with the Beast, depending on how it's shot. Here, it just seems kind of low budget. I think it was too much of the walls. I think it was, at least for me, it was too much of this sameness all down the walls, this unfinished stuff. It didn't feel like this was anywhere for a wrestling show or what. I mean, it just is like what I just said. It felt like she was just wandering around somewhere. Did not get the impression that she's off heading towards, all right, it's time to head to the ring. And the only real indication that you would have of that is just this random sign that's posted up, say, arena, with the WOW logo on it. And I guess Pep Reilly has x-ray vision because she just walked. As soon as Chainsaw walked by, she just happened to open the door like, hey, I just want to get, like she knew. And gives her red flower, and then she, goes towards the door. Now, this will be the point, because given what I have seen in the following match, I like Chainsaw. I do. But if we're going off of the persona of Chainsaw, let me just get the heel line in that with the day that they was handing out brains, she must have took a trip to the lake. Because to think that I'm going to have this red flower, however fake it may be, in my pocket while I wrestle and it not be damaged is the sign of absolute idiocy. So yeah, when they was handing brains out, she was off on vacation somewhere. The red plastic rose. And yes, I will say that it's plastic because that's what it looked like when they got to get close up on it in the next match. But that's neither here nor there. Next segment is Holidead cutting a prom saw. What the fuck did I just say? A prom saw? Let me try that again. Holidead cuts a promo on Chainsaw. I just combined and created some new words there. Holidead's promo is good, but Holidead's promo is always good. Holidead cutting a promo as Holidead is going to be good. It's another one of those things. It's like me saying the Glitter Chella match. I had the utmost confidence that they would have a good match. I had the utmost confidence that Holidead can cut a good promo. Especially, she's done this a while. And it's not like they assigned her the persona of Holidead. She was Holidead when she got there. And she'd been cutting promos being Holidead for some time now. So I'm pretty sure that she is very aware of how Holidead should be speaking, walking, and talking. And she gives her promo. She probably came up with it on her own. I mean, I wrote down who's going to write for her in the first place. And it works. It's too bad we don't have more of those. So this leads into our next match. And that match is Chainsaw with Angelica Dante versus Holidead. Now, of course, the first thing I was putting down is where was Angelica Dante when Chainsaw was just wandering around in the back? Because suddenly they're together. if she was going directly to the arena, I guess. But, Holidead is perceived as somebody who can fight the fight with Chainsaw. They've already had their falling out last season and had their match. Holidead was able to overcome in that instance. And this is the return. So there's no beef here with, the matchup between the two. It's just the angle in it that, that I'm like, oh boy, this is not good. So when they come out, Dante's there. Like I said, even though we didn't see her in the back, she comes out and she's with her sister. And Chainsaw comes and she's got her horror smock on or apron, as does Dante with her horror fan, with all the ears and faces and all that good stuff on it. Before I even begin, the angle that they have been leaning into has been Dante saying that Chainsaw's not been concentrating, and yet that is another angle that we didn't see any of that. You saw it after the fact, but Dante brought it up before anything took place. I need you to concentrate. I need you to focus and do this. And like we hadn't seen that up until that one match where she lost focus 2 or 3 weeks later. But here, there's really nothing on the, I can't say it's nothing on the line. I think this is a qualifier, so there is something on the line here. So let me retract that. And good on Holidead for going to that championship and looking at it. A small thing, but something nonetheless. Going by and touching it, going by and looking at it, going by and, just a quick tap for luck or whatever the case may be. Those things, it does add something to, I want this. It's the silent communication of that. So I appreciate that Holidead was, thought to do that. Now, as stated before, when they had their original match, it was a case of Holidead being perceived as one of the few people on the roster that could match up with her being Chainsaw. And the other thing that I liked about this match is that it changed the tone of the show. Whereas Fury versus Aussie, good, but it was pretty much, more technical than what this is. The same thing would be said about Glitter and Chella. It's more technical than what this is. Holidead made it into a brawl. Whether it was a hard-hitting, brawl or as hard as you wanted it to be, that might be a different issue, but the fact is that she was able to provide a different element to this match that the previous matches didn't have, including the random clubbing blows, not really a test of strength, but, I give you a shoulder block, you don't move. I give you a kick, you just, kind of wander back into the ropes and come back. All of those things. It was just a little different than what we had preceding it. And I appreciate that. I have often said that with Chainsaw, despite the fact that she is probably not an accomplished and or experienced wrestler, the fact that she is Chainsaw helps absolve some of that. It helps her not need to be as good as her colleagues in this instance, because she can just put it off on being an uncontrollable monster. For those that, and I say this for the people at my job because they keep bringing Chainsaw, what kind of name is that? Now it should be noted, I said the name isn't bad. It works for her. Yeah, does it sound on the surface like, I don't know, an elementary name? I guess you could say that. But she's got a chainsaw tattooed on her thigh. What other name is she supposed to have? It's right there in big, bold ink. So if she's going to have, in her own personal time, if she's going to have a chainsaw on her thigh, then yeah, be Chainsaw. He said, I don't care who had it. Now, under normal circumstances, I would say this is just a recycled name, but when you're willing to get that tattooed on your thigh, I mean, I don't care who had the name before her. She's Chainsaw. Now, they had a little spot in the middle of the match where they seemed like the communication got kind of thrown off. It's like Chainsaw was trying to lift Holidead up, but the where, the when, and the how for a couple of seconds is like, okay, I'm going to get you. You know, no, wait a minute, move. It felt like that. Like, I don't know where exactly I'm supposed to be grabbing you right now. Then, they figured it out and they moved on. It certainly wasn't a big enough thing to be like, oh, you messed up. That's terrible. Ha, ha, ha. No, it was none of that. So they kept going, and this is where the match is starting to get to our climax point. The big show of strength that we got coming out of the corner was Holidead being tossed into the turnbuckle. Chainsaw tries to charge. Holidead stands in the middle of the ring waiting for Chainsaw to come out. Hits her with the big spine buster. And when she does that, they both go down. Now, we can see the obvious repositioning of the flower from Chainsaw while she's down. The first portion of that I did not have a problem with because, in fairness to Chainsaw, she covered this up as much as she could, I feel like. Draped her hair down. She's laying on her stomach. She's trying to cover up the visibility of repositioning the flower. And I thought that was, that was just fine because she didn't put it in. It wasn't an obvious space. But here, and it might not have been completely obvious except for the camera angle that took place following this. It looked like Holidead was going for a finish, like she might have been going for an implant face buster. She gets Chainsaw between her thighs. Now, while Chainsaw's leaned over, the camera is shooting from the back. Okay, so picture that in your mind if you haven't seen it. So what you see is Chainsaw bent over and Holidead trying to get her up. Here's the unfortunate part, and this is where the production might have did Chainsaw no favors. So I'm not going to put this on her. Because of the way the camera is positioned behind her and where she is, you can see pretty much clearly Chainsaw pull the flower out of her outfit and drop it. And then Holidead just stomps on it and kicks it to the side. That close-up is where I was like, okay, this is clearly a fake flower. You can see the shine on it. They took it out of somebody's fake vase and just brought it in like, hey, here you go. Here's a flower. Use that. And so now we see the flower stomped and Chainsaw sees this and she loses her mind. She fights out of this maneuver that Holidead has her in. And she leans in and she starts choking Holidead relentlessly. For Chainsaw, I like this. I don't know necessarily why Dante was coming in there to do something about it because she always seemed like she wanted her to be this monster. So, like, what are you trying to stop her for? But, whatever. And the referee tries to stop it. And here's where I kind of lost the good feeling that I was having for the show. I was like, I can get past the flower and I can get past the production showing the use of the flower. But the three referees, I mean, come on. It's only so much I can suspend my disbelief for. I can fully believe that Chainsaw is a strong woman. I can fully believe that she can toss one of those guys down. What I cannot believe is that she, while choking Holidead, is not moved or peeled off by any one of, let alone three of these guys. And then when she decides that she's had enough, she just flings her mighty arms in the air and with her Herculean strength tosses all of them flying out of the ring. That was like my bridge too far. I was like, no. That is not happening. Because it's not like they just, oof, I failed and let me get back up. No, they got thrown and all of them like, oh, God, I got to get out of the ring now because this is just too much for me. No. Like I said, I can buy her shoving one or getting up and knocking one on his butt or something like that, but come on. All three of them. All three. So, yeah, I don't I was fine with her going berserk, as somebody put it. I'm fine with that. But what I was not good with was this thing here. The y'all get off of me, and everybody just like, oh my God, I could, they go flying, flinging around like rag dolls. By the way, this match ends in a disqualification for Chainsaw not releasing her blatant choke. And I wrote, this is good, but it's hard to buy Chainsaw tossing 3 grown men around, the referees, with ease. I'm not saying that she isn't strong, but seriously, come on. And then let us rope back to the beginning statement here. Like, what did she think was going to happen with this flower? If I'm going to wrestle with this thing in my shirt, a good drop toe hold would mess it up when she falls on her face. So again, what was she thinking was going to happen with this flower? That it was going to be undamaged? I mean, it's fake. First off, it's going to survive it, and it did survive. It didn't look any worse for wear when she picked it up. So it probably would have been a better thing to illustrate the point if they had a real flower where the stomp could have potentially ground it into the mat or something like that. But as it was, they used this fake one, and like I said, it didn't look any worse for wear. Maybe a few petals were out of place, but that's about it. It might have been more impactful if it was an actual flower and it, actually got destroyed. This thing did not get destroyed. It was inconvenienced at best. But if that little thing is what drove her over the top, like I said, what was she thinking? I'm going to keep this in my pocket as I wrestle this delicate thing that I don't want to be damaged. Yeah. Tell Chainsaw, the line for brains is still active. You can go stand in it still. They hand them out all the time. The next segment. The commentators billboard who's made it into the battle royal. This I liked. Because they actually told you who was in it. And not just, I don't want to say a random tossing of names that just show up that day, which might just happen anyway. I do not put it past Wild that one of these persons that's on this named list does not actually make it into the match. I don't put it past them for that. But I like that, it's a small thing. I like the graphic. I like that they billboarded it. I like that they showed you the participants involved. I probably would have been just as fine if they had just thrown them in the battle royal to begin with. But they went through the names, and they have Princess Aussie. They have Genesis. They have Holly Swag, Santana Garrett, the Classmaster, Cena Phoenix, Tormenta, Penelope Pink, Reina Del Rey, Chantilly, Chella, and Holidead. Holidead, I guess, being the only person that made it into this battle royal who didn't actually pin or defeat somebody in order to get it. She's the only person that got there based off of a DQ finish. Classmaster was just tossed in. Which also didn't make a lot of sense that she would just be tossed in, but Penelope Pink would have to qualify. But that's neither here nor there. Speaking of Penelope Pink, you would think that she would have some issues with Holly Swag getting on the microphone talking about, I'm going to be the next Wild Champion. Hadn't really seen anything following up on that either. But again, I digress. But at least the commentators try to make this a big deal, and they point out the fact that there is one slot available. There's one more person that will be able to get into this match and hopefully qualified to be in the Battle Royal. I think I know who it is, but, we'll let this all play out in real time. The next segment, Samantha Smart and the Classmaster have a backstage showing in the edit bays again. And they've got to show that they've been studying Tormenta. This looks more like a piece for Samantha Smart rather than anything putting over the match, the opponent, or the Classmaster. The segment pretty much goes as follows. Now, we've seen them do this once already. And essentially, the only thing that they did was just reverse themselves. Like the previous time when they were looking at this stuff in the back and the Classmaster couldn't bother to take off her cap and gown and be serious for a moment. Samantha Smart standing on the left, Classmaster sitting on the right, and the footage is playing in the background. This time it's just reverse. Classmaster is now sitting on the left, and Samantha Smart is standing on the right, and they're pointing at footage of Tormenta that has been clearly prepared and ready to go. Nothing wrong with it being prepared and ready to go, by the way. But she's standing there, she being Samantha Smart. Classmaster's putting on all her concentration faces, like, yes. And as she's pointing, she being smart, is pointing at Tormenta, and she's talking about, she has strength and she has high fly, but you're tall. Now, that's not what she said verbatim, but I mean, that's kind of what it just came down to. It's like, you have this, but you have height. Like, that is your qualifier? Is that she has height? I appreciate the segment. I really do. And I appreciate that they have tried to make it look and seem as if they were doing something important here. But I had two things that I, needed to bring up as far as that was concerned. The first thing being, this whole study session, why is this happening? I mean, sure, I'm sure the Classmaster wants to win, and so does Samantha Smart, but why this match is what I was getting at. What about this match is important? That 2 weeks worth of her being shown studying Tormenta was for. There's no personal issue between the two of them. There's no personal issue between Smart and Tormenta. There's no stipulation here that would cause problems for either party. There's no championship on the line. Nor is it a qualifier because both parties are in the ring. I mean, in the Battle Royal. So what was this? What is this there to accomplish? Yes, it is a good character build to show Smart trying to educate her client into this is how you do this is how you win, and et cetera, et cetera. But if they were going to do that, I would have really preferred that they actually sit there and go over the match or, study it like a real person would study it. This is where I'm like, it does help to watch some sports every once in a while. And I'm not even a big sports guy. I mean, I watch it, but I'm certainly not a hardcore sports fan like a lot of other guys that I know. Where they know the stats and the figures and this and who got in where. And, I've just never been that person. I like watching it. I like seeing the football, I like seeing basketball. But I never got into where had it memorized to T. My son, different story. Got it down like the back of his hand. But it would have been a better thing, in my opinion, if they actually had shown, say, Tormenta facing someone who we could fathom of equal ability as the Classmaster, or close to. Like, let's see how she fared against this person. You have someone, whatever. Maybe if they had a telestrator and they showed, what she's doing, you have to watch out for this. Like, have advice that would sound like this is what I need you to. Like this is legitimate advice. Samantha Smart delivered well, but everything that she was saying there, by and large, was like generic and vague. She has speed, she has strength, but you have height. Look at that, and we need to focus. And it didn't feel like a strategy session, so to speak. I would have gotten more out of it if we had walked in there, we was in the war room, we're seeing her go through the notes. We know Tormenta does this, and she does that, and et cetera, et cetera. You got to watch out for this thing, the meteor off the top rope. That could be the end of the match. We don't want that. Blah 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 blah. It just would have felt more engaged and far more serious if that were the case. Here is just, it just felt like a segment. It didn't feel important at all. Never mind that the match isn't important, but this did not feel important at all. It's just there. And then, again, the Classmaster's just sitting there with that cap and gown. Well, not the gown. The gown's actually over the chair. She took it out off. But she still got the cap on. She still looked like a goddamn goof sitting there. Like she's just playing around or waiting to tell a joke or something. I mean, and the way she's reacting to her, she's. I don't know how to describe her reaction to. It's like, you want some candy? And she's like, yeah. That's like the closest thing I could. It's the closest thing I could think of when I see the look on her face. I mean, just watch her without the sound sometime. Sitting in that chair, just like with this grin as Samantha Smart's telling her what to do and how they're going to do it, and you're going to win, and she's got this, yes. Yeah. It's like super villainy at its finest. There we go to Tormenta. She cuts a promo. Again, it's in subtitles. But it's nice that she is actually cutting a promo, whether it's in English or not. And she has continued to put over this as something that she wants. And by that, I mean success within WoW, not necessarily the championship. She's already talked about the championship. But I also put the note that amazing that Tormenta's success came after losing Sophia Lopez. Like when she was with Sophia Lopez, she's like lost on a week-to-week basis. Now is, okay, I am winning and I'm going after the championship and I succeed. Every other time beforehand, she was just getting jobbed out. But now look at her. So, and she wants to represent WoW. Good on her. The next segment, the WoW advertising a triple threat match for the tag team titles, Miami Sweet Heat versus Animal Instinct versus Big Rigs and Bourbon. And as stated earlier, I wrote here, afraid Jones and Betty's reign may come to an end in this match. I'm hoping that I'm wrong, but, probably not. And it's the main event. The Classmaster with Samantha Smart versus Tormenta. When this starts, McLean is explaining why the Classmaster is in the position that she's in, of being in the battle royal, etc. And McLean recaps the attack on the Beast. I wrote, why is this important? And because it's never going to be a full explanation for that. Especially they have never even begun to address the third attacker. it's just like we found 2 out of 3. That ain't bad, so we'll just leave it alone. They actually bring up that Smart is wearing high heels, and Zane and McClain, they mentioned that. Something to the effect of, you saying that she has a Napoleon complex? Because he said, McClain said something along the lines of, she's 6'2" when she has those heels on, or 6 feet or whatever. And then, Zane responds to that, suggesting that she might be wearing them so that she does not seem short around the Classmaster. And we pause right there before we go to the review of the match. I am just going to say to both parties involved, just admit that Samantha Smart is not the best goddamn manager for the Classmaster. Now, I'm sorry, she is not. Just admit it. Either that or give the Classmaster some other selling point besides the fact that she's 6'2". That's a very shallow accomplishment anyway. It's not something that she did on her own. She just grew into it. Just like I did. Just like my son did. Just like my brother. Just like, any other people that were all tall. I had no choice in how tall I was. I just became that way. It wasn't like I made an active decision, be like, I want to be 6'3". No, it just happened. So if you're going to have that be her only discerning and qualifying feature, then get somebody else around her. Not having a manager who's right up there equal in height and wearing heels on top of it to ensure that she's equal in height. Because what other reason do they have to be together besides the fact that they share some loose thread of a gimmick? Yeah, Samantha Smart, she walks around with a yardstick, and we got a Classmaster. All right. Other than that, there's no purpose behind them two being together. They're just together based on gimmick. You can save the Classmaster if you really tried to. Get her out of this and rehabilitate her, give her another gimmick, and get her somebody else. Then you can talk about her being 6'2" all you want. But as long as she's with Samantha Smart, who's relatively of equal height, even though you brought it up, it does not change the fact that her only feature that has been showcased or spotlighted is the fact that she's tall. Find another feature to talk about. She moves big for a tall woman. She's one of the most powerful people on the roster. She something. Very agile for a tall woman. She towers over most anything. But just something beyond the fact that she's tall. So they have that. Which, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm taking credit for that too. There's a couple of things I've taken credit for as being addressed on WoW. I am going to take credit for that. I'm taking credit for somebody actually bringing up the fact that she is tall and her manager decided that she wanted to be tall too. But yeah, we'll move on. The first thing that we see in this last segment after the recap of the Beast, and I said, why is this important, and the high heels and all that stuff. Then forgot to mention, when she comes out, the Videotron that they play with all the formulas going on in the foreground, and Smart smacking the yardstick against her hand with a stern look, and the Classmaster standing behind her trying to look mean and putting her finger up to like, you got no brains, or whatever the case may be. It's like that. This stupid book and a stupid cap and a stupid gown. Get rid of it. All of it is dumb. And she will never be taken seriously. She will never be taken seriously. Never. Unless they do something that's going to change her. As long as she has this stupid gimmick and the cap, the gown, the book, She will never be taken seriously. I don't care if she does become the world champion. She will never be taken seriously. Anyhow, sorry, I just had to get that out of my system. Anyhow, so they get into the ring. That is where McLean and Zayn had their little statement about, she's just as tall. And she is. She's just as goddamn tall, if not taller. She might as well just be in the ring. Just let her wrestle. I don't know how good or bad she is in it. I've only seen her do one move in the middle of, at the end of a match and win, but that wasn't acknowledged. And according to Wild's history, it never happened because that unaired season is only acknowledged when necessary and only the big points that, that they want to take advantage of for the case of the lineage of the show. So Tormenta comes out. And she's ready for combat. Looks great coming down there. Pointing at the camera, saying she's number one. She's got her fist up and fighting in her fighting stance and all that good stuff. I like Tormenta. But I think Tormenta needs some people that, can work well with her at times. Fortunately, the Classmaster was able to do some reasonable stuff with her. But before we even begin to review this match, I have to come back to what was this for? How is this a main event? There's nothing here. I mean, we got 2 weeks of the Classmaster studying Tormenta, but I'm like, why is she studying her? Is there something on the line that I'm not aware of that she should be, that makes this match important? There's nothing here that's important. And I can understand, and I feel that they were trying to add some sort of gravitas to the match, or they were trying to add something to make it feel important. But I didn't get the feeling of this at all. I just really did. There was nothing that I could wrap my mind around to invest into whether or not she won, because let's look at the grand scheme of this. If the Classmaster had won the match and Tormenta lost, was that going to somehow derail Tormenta going into the Battle Royal and going for the championship? Other way around, Tormenta beats the Classmaster. Did that somehow derail the Classmaster for going after the championship in the Battle Royal? Both of them are already in it. There's nothing to lose here. Neither one of them have a title, so they don't lose that. They're not losing their spot. They're not losing any money. They're not being forced out of the company. There's no personal issue. It's just a match for the sake of a match in the main event spot. Every once in a while, not going to say every once in a while. You can get the idea that a random match in the course of the show is a needed function. Every match can't have something on it. Every match can't have some angle. You're going to have some cold matches. But generally speaking, the main event isn't reserved for that. The main event is for something that people would want to see, which is why it's the main event. I'm not trying to insult either one of them, but I didn't care if I saw this match or not. I really didn't. So they get to the main event, and you can see the obvious size difference between the two when they come up face to face. And Classmaster's, she's not necessarily towering over her, but she's easily taller than Tormenta is. And she does the shoulder block. Classmaster doesn't go anywhere. She's playing the role of the giant. Now, I will say this for Classmaster, opposed to her being Lois Grain on the Indies. She works a stronger, more dominating style here than I have seen of her on the Indies so far. I'm not saying that she doesn't do it, but anytime I've seen her on the Indies, she doesn't work like she's supposed to be bigger, stronger, and more dominating than anybody. She works like everybody else. So if she's gained anything, if I can point at a while and be like, okay, there's something that was learned, gained, or function that she acquired here for her toolbox, so to speak, that would probably be it. She looks like she at least tries to be more dominating in this environment. So about 3 shoulder blocks, they test each other, or at least Tormenta goes testing her. And she finally gets one that shoots, or at least backs the Classmaster up. Classmaster tries to shoot her into the ropes. That's reversed. And then that is reversed by Tormenta. She's able to catch the Classmaster's hand and does the old walk up. She takes her up onto the top ropes. I don't know what the audience was thinking there. They seemed like they was, somewhat comatose. And then the second that happened, Samantha Smart is up on the apron to distract Tormenta. And Tormenta just immediately turns around and like, what are you doing? I mean, so as she's talking with her, the Classmaster charges across and forearms Tormenta in the back. And they regain the advantage. And Smart's out there giving the thumbs down to the front row. To all the plants that have showed up to be part of the show. All the interns from the Los Angeles Lakers that have been told to come down and watch the show because I'm telling you to, and I'm Jeannie Buss. Now, I don't know if that actually happened, but you know what? I wouldn't be surprised. Anyhow, moving on. So the Classmaster is in charge of this match for at least a good portion after Samantha Smart got her the advantage again. If there's one thing that I don't understand with this pairing, at least 3 times now, and I'm jumping ahead in the match, by the way, at least 3 times now, Samantha Smart has either caused pain and or loss to her client through her attempt of interference. At least 3 times with the yardstick. The first 2 times are just pitiful timing. Because she gets up there and then she takes a swipe, when it's blatantly obvious that you're not going to hit the opponent, you're going to hit your own person. But she just swings that thing anyway. Here, at the end of the match, Tormenta is charged at in the corner by the Classmaster. Smart is going on the outside to get herself in position. Then Tormenta gets the Classmaster in a full Nelson as Samantha Smart is getting up on the apron. Now, why she was starting to get up on the apron at that point, I don't know. I guess she's a mind reader and she knew that Classmaster was going to reverse it. So the Classmaster does do that. She does reverse it. And now, bear in mind, all of this is taking place directly in front of the referee. I mean, he's right there behind all of this. So, in the WoW universe, how would this even work? Because if she was successful with it, they would have been disqualified. If Smart had nailed Tormenta in the head like she was attempting to do with this yardstick, they'd have been disqualified. So where's the smarts in that? This spot, it just wasn't a good spot. It seemed it's not out of place because they've set the tone for it a couple of times, but something else should have happened here to where if you're going to try to do this, she's trying to get a victory for her being the Classmaster rather than I'm just going to get up here and take a wild swing at you and hope for the best. And that's what this came off like. It's like I'm just going to get up on the apron. I'm going to take a wild swing and maybe the referee won't disqualify me. So Smart's on the apron. She has the yardstick. She's about to take a swing at the captured Tormenta, who's in the full Nelson, but Tormenta gets free and gets behind the Classmaster. Classmaster's like, whoa, 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 don't hit me. Smart stops in the nick of time. Tormenta rolls her up and then puts her weight across the legs of the Classmaster in the roll-up position. 1, 2, 3. She gets a fast one on the Classmaster and wins the match. It was good, but like I said, where were they going to go with that? Where exactly were they going to go with this thing? I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. Just go back and watch the video. Go back and watch the video at the end and tell me where that referee is and explain to me how he would have missed seeing Samantha Smart nail this person in the head blatantly in front of him. You wouldn't have. He wouldn't have. It'd have been impossible. So where was this going to go? She's supposed to be the smartest of them all. So why would she have even attempted that? You couldn't come up with a better plan than to, I know, I'll just hit him in front of the ref. Or hit her in front of the ref. So after the match, the match is okay, but after the match, Tormenta rolls out and goes away. Smart gets in and cuts her promo, basically saying that Tormenta's win was a fluke, and that they'll succeed, in the end, and etc. Then she tells the I guess whoever's operating the music, I command you to play our music now. I don't even know what I would have wanted from this at this point. Because this was a worthless match. I mean, not worthless in the sense of what they did, but there was no reason for it. It was no real point behind her having to justify what happened in the end, because she didn't lose anything. I mean, she should be pissed off about it. Yes, she should absolutely be pissed because the loss is a loss. But I just did not get the idea that any of this was relevant to what was going on in the future. If you just isolated this one match and just stuck it out on its own, like if this wasn't part of the show and they just like, hey, we got a special match up on YouTube, go watch it right now, this would be a perfect example of one that you could do that with. Because there's nothing before it, there's nothing after it. It's pretty much self-contained. And it really had no purpose in the show overall. I honestly would have said Holidead and Chainsaw would have been a better main event. At least there was something on the line there. But that was that. I mean, that was the show. I mean, I'm not going to go off into the full-on of Smart's promo. I mean, it was fine. It's a Samantha Smart promo. And she always feels like she has to cut her promos in lieu of being Samantha Smart. And by that, I mean she has to attempt to speak in more gravitas. She has to try to be bigger words and this, like, and the other. My only real issue with her is kind of like what I had with Sophia Lopez. And that we haven't really identified whether she's actually supposed to be a genius or she's somebody who believes that she is. Like Bobby Heenan. I'll use him. The brain. And of course he was positioned and presented as, I'm the brain. He was, I'm the smartest guy on the planet, et cetera, et cetera. But there was always the little element of Bobby is not as smart as he thinks he is. And that was by his actions, signing contracts just out of arrogance and not paying attention to the fine print or what, things like that. Being outsmarted by some of the baby faces. Those things would help you illustrate the point that, man, this dude isn't smart. Even if they did not actually say it. Sometimes the commentators would have to just joke around with it. Or Bobby would purposely, in the real world, he would purposely say things wrong in order to sound like an idiot. And then, just kind of correct him like, yeah, I knew that. But we never got that with Smart. It's like the Sophia Lopez thing what I was getting at earlier. Lopez was declared the greatest attorney in the world. But they never really fed into that. They had her actually win, some cases so long as it wasn't against David. And I shouldn't say cases. She illustrated that she was competent at what she was doing, except when she came up against David. He just shut it down. And then she would come out handing out cards when she was supposed to be a heel, so that was confusing. She would be successful in showing that she was smart, but then outsmarted. The audience has to be let in on some of this. If Samantha Smart is portraying someone who believes herself to be this super genius, but she is not, there needs to be some things on that show that help illustrate that point. The same way it should have been for Sophia Lopez. It should have been things to illustrate that maybe she's not the greatest attorney in the world as they've put her up to be. But I always get the impression here like they really want these people to be the things that they say, at least on screen, so they don't really diminish that until they have some issue with David McClain, and then they're shown to be put in their place. It's like the whole, you promised, David, you gave your word. It's like, all right, yeah, whatever. I know you had a title match, but too bad. You can qualify for the Battle Royal instead. So that was that. McClain tried to add weight to this match with the possibility of injury. Because somewhere in there, they did the old, one of these ladies could get hurt and they might not be able to make it to the Battle Royal. So they tried to add some weight to it with that. But still, even with that, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. And I've seen what he's doing. There's been other wrestling promotions that have done it. But they, again, weren't the main event. And they were likely doing that on some other larger show. And I know that, I guess a prime example of that would be Ventura. Jesse Ventura used to use some of that a lot. But it would be in things like, say we have a non-title match. Champions in there against whoever. And it would be a case of, it's nothing to lose and, everything to gain. And Ventura might chime in and say, well, not directly, because if the champion gets hurt in this match, he might wind up having to go into the next match with an injury, which put him at a disadvantage. Or he might be hurt to the point where he can't defend at all. So, when you're the champion, you always have, the thought of, I have to be careful in this match. I have to watch out what I'm doing. There's always a chance something could happen. And so I feel like they were trying to get that, but this probably wasn't the match for that. There just wasn't enough here. It just was not enough. I'm sorry. Now, some of you, moving out of this main event, some of you may have noticed while watching this, a Verizon Christmas spot that aired repeatedly during the show. It's a Verizon trade-in spot that ran like 3 times in a row on their program. And I just want to say that was part of WOW's internal ads. That's not the ads of your local station. I know that because I looked at the files. And for whatever reason, whoever edited this show together just edited in a 30-second Verizon commercial 3 times back to back to back. Again, for what reason they did that, don't know. Because I would have imagined that they provided multiple spot links. They usually do that, like a 60, a 30, a 15, and a 5. And in some cases, you might get a 90-second. So I didn't really understand. I was like, you don't have anything else internally that you can use to buffer this out? Because it was annoying as I'm trying not to cuss too much, but it was annoying. I mean, I'm in the building watching this, and if I had any ability to change the channel off of that, I'd have done it. I know that doesn't have necessarily to do with the creative of the show, but I mention it because it was an internal break. So it wasn't anything that the stations could really do about that. And it's also like, if you're trying to run people off from your show, that's a good way to do it. I get the fact that the spot, the internal inventory of the program was sold, and Verizon was the one that got it, or whatever agency they went through to get that spot. But that is like, change the channel repellent. Well, maybe that's phrased wrong, but it's a good way to get somebody to change the channel. Because it's like, if you hear the opening say, it's the most wonderful time, and it's like 3 times back to back. And we was watching, it's like, God damn, are they running this again? Why? Some of that does affect the audience. Like, I could have just as easily left right there. That was about a quarter of the way into the show. So if you watched it and you happened to see that and it stood out to you that, like, wow, they just ran this straight. Yeah, that was them. That was WOW. And there ain't nobody in WOW that's going to tell me, well, no, it wasn't. Yes, it was. It was WOW. I saw the proof. It was WOW. You probably don't want to do that. You probably do not want to have things in there that could potentially run your viewers off or make you not want to see it when you do things of that nature. A recap or a summary before I get to the next thing. Back to the first segment. When Jones comes out as the babyface and addresses Miami Sweet Heat and Animal Instinct, she says something to the effect to Sweet Heat. It wasn't smart for Sweet Heat to stick their noses in their business. Which, honestly, and actually it was. It was smart for them to stick their noses in their business. They got an immediate title shot. So, you know, in most cases, I would agree with Jessie Jones, and I love her promos, but in this case, it's like, no. It was smart for them to stick their noses in their business because look what it got them. They won a single match. They won against the Dojo Defenders, a team that has not a great win-loss record to begin with. But they won against them, and it's like, all right, it's back to number 1 contenders. They attacked. The babyfaces said some nonsense about, well, we would take on all of you. And now they got another title shot. So it was absolutely smart for them to do this. They got what they wanted. They got gifted the title match. And the babyfaces find themselves in another position where they're going to have to take on some multi-person assault. In much the same way as they position Princess Aussie, be like, I'll take on, I'll defend against everybody, and we'll have the championship challenge, so just figure that out, and I'll have the match. And then she has to go in there first, and then she loses. This is what I feel like is about to happen. It's like, yeah, we'll take on you both. It's like, well, you asked for it, so there you go. Chainsaw's reaction to the flower. Was it overdone? Well, maybe not for her. But have they done enough to establish what this flower means to warrant the response? Is basically what I was getting at when I wrote it. It is nice that they're able to try to apply that this thing is important to her. I mean, even though she just got it. I probably would have preferred, and I said before that it was real flower, but getting out of the flower, if Pep Reilly had given her something of hers as a thank you, rather than just some flower. Like an item, like, hey, you know, I really appreciate you looking out or supporting me. I want you to have this. I drew this for you. You know, something. And, you know, the reason I say that, because I think it would be easier for the WoW artists to digest that this means something and it's an item of significance, because they don't really get the chance to speak, to tell you these things on WoW television, nor does Chainsaw really talk. So she can't do it. So the aid has to be more visual than what it's been. The flowers are nice, but I do personally believe that if they had some item, like I said, I'm just using a drawing in this case as an example. Like, I don't know if she could do that, but let's just say that she could. Like if she sat down and drew this portrait of Chainsaw, this magnificent picture, and she framed it and gave it to her. And, you know, she took it out. Now, of course, it would have to be worked differently as to how it got destroyed. But it would be easy to understand why that would be something that she would lose her mind about. Especially, say, like it was in the corner and Holidead saw it and picked it up and just tore it up. Now, you can't have Holidead do that and be a baby face. She would be booed. I'm just saying that if something along those lines happened, it wouldn't, but it would be every reason that would provide Chainsaw to lose her mind, go berserk, be mad, be pissed, you know, something like that. And when they closed out, I don't know, and this is a small thing also, but like Nigel says, David, you could close this out, and then he just proceeds to do it anyway. It's like, you go ahead and tell everybody goodbye. So anyway, David, for Genie Bus, myself, and you, goodbye, everybody. I'm like, all right, well, I guess David got to close it out. But that was WoW, and that was the, you know, whole episode. All of that to say that it was not as good as I would have liked it to have been. It wasn't even as good as what happened the week prior. The week prior didn't have a lot of stuff going on in it, but at least it had consistency. That's probably the best way to describe it. There was consistency to that. And how the show and the matches were treated, presented, functioned, etc. Here, you have to justify Fury being into the match. You have to explain why Gloria Glitter is being ignored by her teammates, because we didn't see either one of these things. You have to make sure that people know that the flower is a valued piece of property by Chainsaw. They tried to give some weight to the main event, and it just didn't happen. It's like one match after another, there was something in there that took away from the match for me. Now, if you're just judging off the merit of the matches, if we're just doing that, if we take the recycled Fury out of it, if we take Gloria Glitter being at odds, so to speak, for lack of a better term, against top tier out of the equation, if we take, well, actually, the Chainsaw Holidead thing, I could leave as is. I would prefer a different thing for her to be mad about, but it's not like it was bad. So that you probably keep the absolute same. But going into the main event, if they had added everything else, you would have to remove. But if they had added some sort of stipulation to why these two are facing each other, and more importantly, why Classmaster would feel the need to sit down and study her for 2 weeks before they had the match, then I might have had something else, that I felt for it. But I could not feel for that match. I just couldn't. It just was no reason to, and it just was not important. So we get out of that. And you know what's next. It is the preview for the next episode of WoW. Because the next episode is going to be assumably the final fill-in spot for the Battle Royal. And the triple threat match for the tag team titles. So what I would like to do right now is read you the preview of the upcoming match. Well, I shouldn't say the upcoming match, the upcoming episode of WoW and what they intend on showcasing. So here's the preview for Season 3, Episode 17. For me, it'll be Episode 121. The title is Three's a Crowd. After Miami Sweet Heats, Lindsay and Lori Carlson and Animal Instinct's Goldie Collins and Katarina Jenks both called next on the Wild Tag Team Championships last week. The main event sees a triple confrontation with both teams facing reigning champs Big Rick Betty and Jesse Jones for the tag team gold. Meanwhile, Abilene Maverick demands a shot for Paola to compete in the Battle Royal, which matchmaker David McClain is willing to accommodate if she wins a qualifying match against Ashley Blaze. Boy. In the tag division, BK Rhythm and Gigi Gianni face Tiki Chamorro and Brittany Bay, while top tiers Coach Campanelli and Candy Crush look to teach Gloria Glitter a lesson for striking out on her own last week. Will Gloria pay enough attention to Coach and Crush's match against the Mighty Mites, Sugar and Spice, to find her way out of the doghouse? All right. Let's take a look. 1. I already told you I feel the dread of a title change lingering over top of me. But more importantly, lingering over top of Big Rig Betty and Jesse Jones. Abilene Maverick demanding a chance or a shot for Paola, who has not been on their television at all, now is having to qualify, and she's put up against Ashley Blaze by David McClain. Oh yeah, matchmaker David McClain, this is their words. Matchmaker David McClain is willing to accommodate if she wins a qualifying match against Ashley Blaze. Yes, I'll put you in this match to go for the championship if you can beat this person who's never won a single match on this show. Just tell her here you go. Here's your ticket. Get into the Battle Royal. BK Rhythm and Gigi Gianni against Tiki Chamorro and Brittany Bay. Well, I would hope that Rhythm and Gianni would win after suffering loss back-to-back to the same person who outwitted and outmaneuvered both of them. And Tiki, where was her shot? Why didn't she get into the match? Brittany Bay could be paired off with Spring Break 24/7 somewhere. What is that? Anyway, I'm not going to go into all that. Except to say, isn't this like the third partner that Tiki's had in a month's time? I mean, she was partnered with Pep Reilly. Then she was partnered with some, who was that? It was some other triple threat team or something along those lines, if I'm not mistaken. Now she's up with Brittany Bay. You know, Chamorro, Riley, and J Boogie. They just need to adopt the name The Abandoned and just forge their group off of being the last of all the ones who just got dropped out. All of our friends have left us. We are abandoned. There is no more Island Dynasty. There is no more Team Spirit. There is no more Brat Pack, at least not for Boogie. The abandoned. They wander the earth aimlessly looking for friends. Anyhow, moving on. And I guess they're going to go all in on this with Gloria Glitter, you know, be good with her friends and rejoin top tier or whatever. I don't know. So I guess the Mighty Mites got to do another job. So anyway, that'll be that. That'll be something to look forward to. Although I am not. Quite honestly, I'm not looking forward to this at all. If I were not doing this review, if I weren't doing this for the benefit of this show, I probably would have not continued this whole thing. I probably would just be like, you know what, let me just, be done with this thing. I don't know whether the show has worn thin on me or something along that line. It's very possible, but yeah, it feels like this show has just started to wear me out. At least that's how it feels right now. Every week, there feels like there's massive gaps in either logic or we're just to accept the things that popped up. Like, hey, Gloria Glitter, and I just asked for a shot for Battle Royal. Like, when did that happen? That takes place more often than not, unfortunately. But that's beside the point. I will not continue on for that because I'm sure that'll be a rant for another day. And then in closing of this, we will get out all the good things that you could do for me and the WPN. And what would that be? Well, that would be subscribing. It'd make me happy and make the show happy by I can't even say the word subscribe. Try it again. Subscribe by subscribing. You can do that on YouTube and do all the YouTube stuff. Like, share, subscribe. If you are listening to this on your whatever podcast platform you happen to be on, because we are on greater podcast platforms, then just go ahead and download it and rate it. Perhaps leave a comment. And if all of that is too difficult, then you can go to one central location, WPNWrestling.com. WPNWrestling.com is the focal point, centerpiece. Everything else is right there. Podcasts, 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week stream with all the videos that were shot from 2013 up to present day. That includes matches, that includes interviews, and a couple other things in between that, like some old school cartoons and whatnot. Why? Because I want it on there. It's my personal network, so I will do what I want. I need to put some more matches in it, though. But anyhow, that's beside the point. So all of those things you can find on WPNWrestling.com. And every once in a while, I might even have a blog or two down there. So, having said that, in closing, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying, so long, and we will see you on the next go-round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.